Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers. And the other day, President Trump held a joint session of Congress and he declared that America is back. Now, the bottom line here is I enjoyed it greatly, but I invited my good friend Nathan Kane. He runs the Raising Cane podcast. He's a good friend of mine. He's a fellow soldier. We got a lot in common. He worked at DOD for a long time, just like I did. And I just thought he would be the perfect person to talk about President Trump's address to the nation. So, Nate, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Wasn't that awesome last night?
I was laughing my tail off. I'm going to tell you, it was
I
kind of
was
like
too.
a stand-up comedian, man. We got a stand-up comedian as a president, brother.
Yes,
I
we
just
do.
enjoyed it. It was great. So, dude, I got a couple of questions that I would like the audience to hear your take on. They listen to me all the time, and I think that they would enjoy hearing what you have to think about. So, let's start off with first of all, he said there was a common sense revolution ongoing. So, what do you mean? What does he mean by that?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that American people are sick and tired of a lot of this ridiculous notions of, all these genders and everything else, and you know, taxing us. Taking all look at all the money that we've been spending on this ridiculous stuff, and he called some of that out. He called some of that out last night. I think that those are the types of things that he was talking about. Common sense that we should be taking care of our own people first, that if some other country is taxing the hell out of us through tariffs, we should be doing it back to them.
I
Why
like
should they be able to put tariffs on us or block our companies from being able to do business there, but yet we're going to allow them to do business here and sell their products to us without tariffs? That doesn't make any sense. Everything that he is doing is legitimate, makes sense type of stuff. We built the Panama Canal. We were the ones that had 30,000 plus die, in the process of building it. And then we gave it to Panama. What did they do? Turned it over to China. So a lot of what Trump is talking about is common sense stuff, which is why his poll numbers are so high, which is why the Democrats look like fools when they don't go along with legitimate, make sense, common sense stuff.
There you go, brother. Well, speaking of the Democrats, it looked like to me that they were totally angry, and most of them were sullenly sitting on their hands every time the GOP got up to applause. Would you like to opine on that, sir?
Yeah, it's funny. Trump set up the Democrats last night perfectly when he basically said, there's nothing I could do to make these people happy. There's nothing I could solve. I could cure the most worst disease in the world. I could save everybody taxes, get our debt under control, and they would never stand or clap for anything. And he's right. And by setting that up right at the very beginning, it perfectly laid the groundwork for every time that they didn't stand and clap for things that Trump had nothing to do with, but things
Right.
where he was just honoring other people, like that young boy who survived cancer and who was given that, was basically made an honorary Secret Service. They should have been standing and clapping for that, but instead, because they hate Trump that much, they sat there quietly holding up their little signs.
I tell you, Nancy Pelosi looked like she was crying. I mean, was she crying or am I wrong?
Oh, I think she is she's seeing the demise of her party. And I got to tell you something. It's funny. I got a message from a longtime Democrat friend of mine, and we used to not be able to talk at all during politics season because him and I would get into it. And
Yeah.
God forbid we had a couple beers because then it might have gone to fist fight.
Uh-oh.
But I had to like cut him off because he used to love to just, try to jab at me every single time.
Yeah.
Now he's text messaging me before Trump's speech last night, and he goes, dude, the Democrats are done.
Yeah.
And he says, if Trump can bring peace between the Ukraine and Russia, it's all over for the Democrat Party. And I think he's right. And I think that there's a lot of Democrats that feel the same way. I mean, look, he has Democrats in his cabinet, RFK Jr.,
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard,
Yep.
There are people who are center, they're slightly left of center even.
Yeah.
But he has reached out and he's done what the Republican Party really was always meant to be, the grand old party, the wide tent that brings people in. And he's putting people into these places that are good people that actually care about the American people. These people that were sitting there last night, with their hands folded in their lap, or in cases of, some of them looking at their phones, holding up stupid signs, thinking that they are scoring, political points. They're not scoring points with anybody. The majority of Americans can see how retarded that is.
I'm not going to use that word, but I am going to caveat to Representative Al Green. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he was escorted out of the chamber last night. Would you care to elaborate, good sir?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, why in the world you would stand there and make a fool of yourself? And I don't know if you saw the interview that was given to him afterwards,
I didn't
but he
see
really
that.
didn't have a lot of substance. What he was complaining about was, oh, I was going to stand there and defend, people from cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. Does he not realize that all of this fraud that is going on is the biggest reason that we're having problems with the solvency of Medicare and Medicaid? If we weren't giving it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who claims to be still alive in this country, and many of them aren't. Many of them are illegal
Yeah.
aliens using fake names, using fake social security numbers so that they can get this. And you've got people that are abusing the system. All of that has got to get cleaned up if we have any hope of being able to save those systems.
There you go. Well, I tell you, man, he made a total fool of himself. And all the
Yes, he
time I
did.
spent in Texas, I was embarrassed for my Texas friends, but, he just, I like the way Trump and Vance handled it. They called the sergeant at arms, the rules are there, and they
Yep.
quietly escorted him out of the room. And I don't know that that's ever been done before, not that I can remember. And I've been
I
watching
just
these
think
things
that
for a while.
the only thing I'll say about Al Green is he's got that iconic cane that he likes to hold up and wave around like a saber. And it was funny, I saw a meme last night. Literally, the memes were flowing. That's the best thing about Donald Trump as president
Yeah.
and the Democrats acting like fools like they are, is that it has just been a non-stop source of memes to go. And like even before it was over last night, there were memes that were popping up, and one of them had Al Green, and somebody had replaced his cane with like a stick with a hot dog on it, holding up to his mouth.
Man, let me tell you what, the Democrats, you are correct. They don't have a sense of humor. They can't
No,
meme, and Trump's killing them on that stuff. And bottom line is this just in our favor, and this is our time. I say let's make the most of it. Now, let's get serious here. One of the things that I really liked about what Trump did was he said that he's going to make it punishable by death the time when someone kills a police officer. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree with it. In fact, look, we've all seen abuse by police officers, FBI, all of that. And we've seen this massive push by the left to defund the police. And certainly the FBI, there's been a lot of problems there. But you've got Cash in there now, got Dan Bongino that's going to be in there soon. You got Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice. And you've got a lot of very good conservative sheriffs all across the United States. And the fact is that we need a combination of both very strict penalties for those that would abuse or put our law enforcement officers in harm's way. I 100% agree. Anybody that murders a cop needs to be put to death. And the other thing, though, that I think is equally important is that our law enforcement officers, they need reinforcement in the Constitution. They need to know what the Constitution are and what the rights are of individual citizens. And I think once we've solved this problem of removing the weaponization of government, especially at the federal level, that's really where we see the problem. And also just improvements in constitutional understanding of the Constitution. There should be testing on that.
Yeah.
I think then there's no excuse for anybody resisting the police or anything like that. And so you need that combination of both. You need to have good, strong, solid awareness of the Constitution so that our law enforcement officers are following that. And any bad cops we got to get them out of there. But when we have good cops in there, they need to be protected. And they absolutely there needs to be a major deterrent against anybody, taking a shot at one of our cops.
I believe that 100%. And I don't know of any president that's ever even brought that up. I mean, I've been watching
Yeah.
these things since I was a kid. So, again, kudos to the good President Trump. So, another question for you. Now, Elon Musk was there, and notice he had a suit on. He wasn't walking
Yeah.
around with his X hat. I got an X hat, by the way. I love it. But he wasn't walking around with his X hat. He was appropriately dressed. But Trump laid
Better
out,
dressed than Zelensky, at least.
well, that's kind of what I was getting. I
Sorry, did I
guess
steal your thunder?
no, 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 man. I'm throwing you softballs here. This is too much fun for me, man. But what do you think about that? The fact that Elon came in with a suit on. Talk about that.
Well, I think it's perfectly appropriate. I think anybody that's going to be in the halls of Congress and our nation's capital, I think it's appropriate for them to be in a suit, and to be dressed appropriately. Very opposite, by the way, of what some of these Democrats that were in there. I don't know if you saw one woman, she had like taken magic marker and wrote all over her jacket, her pink jacket or whatever.
Yeah.
Just looked ridiculous.
I was going to ask you about that. They look, yeah, ridiculous. And there's some other words that I won't use, that military words. So I'll leave that alone. But
All
back
right.
to Elon, let's see. Trump mentioned, let's see, $22 billion to Health and Human Services for housing illegal immigrants,
Yeah. Can you
45
believe it?
million for DEI programs in Burma. Come
Yep.
on, man. 10 million for circumcision program, circumcising people in Mozambique.
How about we
Eight,
circumcise the budget?
yeah,
It's like
dude.
if we're going to cut somewhere, instead of cutting, I'll just leave that off the air. But instead of cutting that, how about we cut the budget?
I'm all for cutting the budget.
There's a meme
Um,
for you. Let's
you know,
cut
the
that foreign
weirdest,
aid.
yeah, the weirdest thing is, I got friends who are not all conservatives, and it's almost like they're living in a different world because they
Yeah.
see Trump and Elon as bad guys. And I liken it to, okay, you call the cops and the cops come and the cops tell you somebody stole from you, but you're mad at the cop. That
Yeah.
makes no sense to me. It makes
Yeah.
no sense for, Elon's over here. He's got better things to do. He's got, rockets to build and cars to build, but yet he's over here with his boys finding all this waste, fraud, and abuse. We should be thanking him. I don't understand. What do you think?
Well, I think you got a lot of what do they call that? Cognizant dissonance.
Yeah,
People's they can't even they know, like their subconscious mind knows that they're screwed up in their thinking,
yeah,
but they're so invested in anti-Trump rhetoric and hate that they can't see the truth that's right there in front of them. And this is really it's really a problem for most of these Democrats. I thought it was interesting what Trump said when he said, you know, they agree with Elon Musk. They just can't admit it publicly.
that there you go.
And I think that's the truth of it. I think there's a lot of them that are sitting there. They're probably fuming because they know that everything that Trump is saying is true and that anybody that sees it is going to likely see the truth. But they're so invested in anti-Trump rhetoric that they cannot give him any credit for anything. And they cannot admit to the truth. And if Trump said 2 + 2 = 4, they're going to say no, it equals 5. Just because Trump said 2 + 2 = 4. That's how ridiculous it has become for the left.
I used to tell people when I was running for Congress that we were suffering from military grade psyop. And they looked at me like I've lost my mind. And you know what that is.
I
So
do.
that's what I think. I think we have been brainwashed, and the people that are doing it are using our own tax dollars to do it. But I got
Well,
you. Go ahead, man.
I
Just
was
go.
just going to say, on that note, look, our intelligence community has been very, very good at figuring out how to overthrow governments. We've done it. It's called the color revolution.
Yep.
But those same forces that had infiltrated our intelligence community, the Marxist left, that have found and it's really they pretend to be Marxist lefts, but the reality is they're globalists.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. They want global hegemonic power and they want to maintain it forever. They make money off of wars. They make money off of that's how they maintain power, is by keeping us fighting each other.
Yeah.
And so they figured out a long time ago that it was pretty easy to utilize those same tactics against our own people, and
Yeah.
they've been doing it. And of course, you have the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which was passed during the Obama years, which allowed for the U.S. government to propagate, to run propaganda against the American people, and they've been doing it.
Yeah, most people don't even know what that is, and they didn't understand that we were being taken for a ride. And I'm hoping and praying that the administration recognizes that and repeals
Yeah.
that law. But I got another question for you. So, how can I live to be 160 years old and get some Social Security? You know anything about that?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, what was it? There was a couple of people that were over, was what one person at least that was older than our country,
Yeah, I
supposedly still
noticed that.
collecting, right? Just, it's
Man,
like how do you defend that? I mean, seriously,
you
how does
can't.
anyone defend that?
You can't. You can't.
I cannot wait until one of my Democrat friends, tries to call out Trump going after Social Security, and then my first response is going to be to him. So you're okay with somebody who's over 200 years old collecting
Hmm.
on Social Security? Is that what you're telling me? Because don't they realize that, again, we're looking at Social Security being insolvent if we don't do something radically to fix things. Okay, they're
Yes.
talking about for people like myself not being able to retire until 70.
Yeah.
That's one of the options that they're looking at. So I would much rather them, how about they go after all of this fraud that's being committed against the American people? Because that's it. It's not fraud against the Social Security system. No, it's fraud against all of us because
Yes.
it's our money that has gone into that system and it's being abused.
Well, it was out for everybody to see. I would venture to say that a lot of people saw the president's words, and I'm reading newspapers this morning, and anybody that didn't see that is just simply not paying attention.
Yeah.
So, the issue of the day is how could people not understand that, all this inflation and high taxes and high this and high that is all being caused by government waste, and the people that are trying to fix it don't deserve what they're getting. They deserve to be patted on the back. Speaking of taxes, tax cuts for everybody. Ending tax on tips, ending taxes on Social Security benefits. Uh, I thought the real cool thing was car loans, ending taxes on American-made cars. What do you
That's
think that all?
brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I think that's a great idea. Those types of tax breaks, I think, are the thing that's going to spur on high-paying jobs here in the United States, and we need them. We need those jobs badly,
Yeah. Another thing is
especially in
that,
places like we're here in West Virginia.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
We've lost in the Ohio River Valley area of our state. We lost a lot of our steel jobs. We lost, they've been shutting down power plants, all kinds of things they've done that have just absolutely decimated the Ohio River Valley. And a lot of those jobs could come back because you already have the infrastructure, you already have the people with skills there. They just need the jobs.
so I would assume that you are cool with reciprocal taxes.
100%. I
I really
realize there's going to
love
be
that.
some pain at first, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we've got to do this because we need to shift our economy. Right now, our economy, we're basically, we're importing everything,
Yeah.
and these companies, they've left here. And one of the
Hmm.
biggest reasons, and Trump hit on this during his speech, one of the biggest reasons for inflation is the high energy costs. Why are we paying the prices for electricity that we're paying when we've got plenty of oil and gas under the ground, underneath our feet? We could have an energy revolution in the state. Coal, a lot of people don't realize that we've got enough coal in West Virginia, for example, I think to power this country for like 500 years.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about coal is you can burn it cleanly. You can make hydrogen from it and burn that, which has zero carbon emissions, even though I don't think carbon is a problem. But you have the ability to stockpile it right next to the plant, just sitting out in the open. And it's not like gas, which is gonna, vent off or air off or anything like that. And so it's one of those things that we need to be with the revolution that's coming in terms of AI and data centers, and all of that sort of thing, we're going to need power, and we're going to need it in abundance, which means we're going to need oil, gas, coal. Green energy doesn't
Yeah.
even count for like 1%.
Yeah.
And we're going to need nuclear power too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned about coal. These nutcases are out there complaining about, climate change and all that sort of stuff. How come they don't go complaining to China and India? If I'm not mistaken, they're
Yeah.
higher emitters of coal and carbon dioxide than we are. So, what do you think about?
China produces twice the amount of carbon that the United States does. Twice.
There you go.
Yet they're not required to pay any, penalties and all of that. India, of course, is a big producer as well. But
Yeah.
their excuse is that they are industrializing countries
Yeah,
where we've
right.
already industrialized. And I'm sorry, you know what? They need to allow any country that wants to produce energy should be able to produce it. And the truth is that we should be concerned about clean air and clean water and things like that. So I'm not for polluting, but with the technology that exists today, they can produce electricity using fossil fuels and it does not pollute the air. There's no reason whatsoever that we should be pushing for green energy. In fact, there's nothing green about it. They've got to do all kinds of nasty mining, of with toxic chemicals and stuff like that to get to the rare earth minerals that are used in these solar panels and things like that. They use this graphite for these windmills
Yeah.
that they can't. It doesn't break down. They have to basically bury these things, and they're only good for about 20 years, and they're filled with oil
Yeah.
because you have all these gears in there. So it's it's a complete lie. The whole thing is a scam.
Well, speaking of rare earth minerals, our boy Zelensky, I hate that guy, by the way. Sounds like he's changed his tune. I mean, could I be wrong? What do
Oh
you
no, you're
think?
right. Here's the thing. Trump, I can't remember who it was that I heard last night talking, but I watched a little bit of afterwards. Some different commentators, and
Yeah.
somebody said, Trump is playing chess while Zelensky's playing checkers.
Yeah.
He went in there, and you know what happened? He met with anti-Trump Democrats
Yeah.
before he went to the White House. Now he had already was supposed to sign a deal, and there was an interview with JD Vance, and I think it was on Fox News, but he had an interview with Sean Hannity. That's who it was, and he basically broke down what happened. They already had a deal. They had already agreed, and it basically going in front of the cameras was just supposed to be just a formality, something to make him look good, basically, that we
Yeah.
were, bringing about a peace deal. And he went and met with some Democrats beforehand who convinced him to say no to the mineral deal and, that they would back him and support him in all of
Victoria
this.
Newland and people like that.
That's right. That's right. A bunch of deep staters. So, of
Yeah.
course, he goes there and he turns down the deal, starts arguing, starts being belligerent and acting like a fool. So, Trump did the right thing. He let the cameras roll and showed the people who this guy really is and threw him out of there and said when
Yeah.
he's ready for peace, he can come back.
Yeah. I like the way it turned out.
Back. And now, he went back and of course he went and met with, the Great Britain and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you." Canada said, "Oh, we'll send you a bunch of planes." They only got 36, I think, or something like that, right?
There
We're going
you
to
go.
send you our planes. It's ridiculous. They know they don't stand a chance against Russia without the United States. And the
Yeah.
reason why? Because not a single one of those European nations are paying their fair share of NATO. If the US were to pull out of NATO, NATO would collapse. It would not exist.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And the funny thing is, here it is. We're supposed to be kowtowing to someone who has no resources. And I've been to the Ukraine, yada, yada, yada. But the issue of the day, never forget that Russia is a nuclear power.
That's right.
Okay? They require kid gloves. And if you can make a deal with a Russian nuclear power and keep yourself from getting nuked, and the rest of the world, you keep us safe, Why not do that? Zelensky, whatever his name is, can't do that for us. And there's a whole lot of other things. But here's the issue, man.
There,
I've kept
yeah.
you on here for about 30 minutes already, and we always have a good time, but I gotta hear what you gotta say about the border, because from the last I heard, the border crossings were down about 90%, and I'm all happy about that
Yeah.
as an old DHS guy. So what do you think?
Oh, I think it's great. And I think one of the biggest things, three things that Trump did that to me are pivotal in changing the way things are at the border. Number one, he shut down the border. He basically said, no more of this nonsense, sent the military down there to support ICE, which I think was absolutely necessary because we're not talking about just people coming across the border for jobs. We're talking about criminal elements that come to this country with the intent to harm American citizens. And we're talking about people bringing fentanyl in at such large numbers that we're losing 100,000 Americans a day. That's insane. I mean, we made a
Absolutely.
big deal out of COVID, but we lost 100,000, mostly young people,
Yeah.
to fentanyl. Now, you also have the other thing that he did was he said, I'm declaring that all of these cartels, all of these Mexican cartels, they are now terrorist organizations. And the reason that's important is because now we can engage them with our military. And we've got some very, very powerful military special force elements that have just the right kind of tools. And we've got drones and we've got other things. And I think that basically put the government of Mexico on notice. You better start cooperating with us, or we will be making incursions into your territory to
Yeah.
defend ours.
There
And
you
so
go.
that's why we saw Mexico all of a sudden change their course. And they had a corrupt judge that was about to let go of a whole bunch of these cartel members. And what did they do? They stuck them on a plane and they flew them to the U.S. for extradition. And
There
that
you
is
go.
great. The other thing that Trump did is he expanded Guantanamo. And my understanding is not only did they expand the eastward side, but also the leeward side, so that way they can deal with not only all of the increases in the hardened criminal elements, the ones that are dangerous to public safety, they're moving them there, and they're going to be putting them in those cells over there. And then the other side, which is more like an encampment, which they've been putting people who are, like Haitian migrants, has been primarily the ones that have been dealt with there. They've expanded that as well. They built additional courthouses so that they can start dealing with, these immigration issues over there. But I also think the other thing that Trump did was one of his first executive orders was to reinstate the death penalty at
Yeah.
the federal level. And I think that these guys who are involved in murdering United States citizens, they're going to get the death penalty. And they can be hung over there on Guantanamo instead of dealing with it here in the US.
I agree with it totally. And the bottom line, man, I tell you, I really appreciate talking to you. It's like just talking to somebody that I've known for 30 years, and we just met the other day. But
I
we do
know.
have a very similar background. But here's the deal. I want to give you some chances, a chance to just say whatever you will to the people and just whatever's on your mind. The floor is now yours.
Look, guys, I'll tell you this. Our country, we have been blessed with a country where we actually have a say in our government. We actually have a say, not just in the federal, but at our local level as well, which in some ways, our local level, we have more impact and it's easier to have an impact. And yet, most people don't show up to vote in their primaries. The people that do show up to vote, that's about the most engagement they have in civic duty is voting. And the reality is that we need good people in these positions in our school board. We need good people that are in our county, officer roles. We need good people that are in our state legislatures. We need good people that are engaged. And even if you're somebody who can't be, in one of those roles, then you know what? Consider how you can be effective by join your local Republican club. Get involved with Concerned Women for America, or with your gun rights advocate groups. You have different groups that are doing things, and it takes people. You know that saying that 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work. It's probably an even smaller number in the world of politics. It's probably 1% of the people. And the reality is that we need a lot more people engaged because politicians, whether it is at the state house or whether it's down in Washington, D.C., the one thing that they do care about and the one thing they do listen to is when they start beginning to see people concerned about. They listen to the what do they call it? The public opinion. Okay, the court of public opinion matters to them because they know in order to get reelected, they better be making sure that people are happy. And it's unfortunate that too often the time, the only people that they hear bothering them are these these guys that are down there, these lobbyists, that are working for for special interests. So we need to be engaged. We've got to be contacting their offices, and the best thing you can do is get involved with a group, an organization that is actively engaged, and there's plenty of them. So I mentioned a couple of them, but I would really encourage you guys to do that, because if we don't take this serious, if we don't um, do our part, then one president is all that needs to change, or one election really is all that needs to change, and everything could be lost. Look how much Trump has been able to get done in 40 days simply because we have the House, we have the Senate, and we have the presidency. Remember how much he was able to get done in his first term, and he was basically doing that on his own. But one presidency changed that, and pretty much, everything that he did was turned over because of Biden's policies and executive orders. That's one of the reasons we need our Congress to put into law these things that Trump is doing at the executive level.
There you go. Well, hey, man, how can people reach you? And can you tell us a little bit about your show?
Sure. So my show is it's basically, I cover politics, national security, cybersecurity, local interest stories as well in this region, and I try to bring on guests and have conversations kind of like what we're doing right now. The one thing I'll say though is that you know what I really enjoy about doing the show is it's given me the opportunity to continue doing what I did when I was campaigning. I ran for Congress just like you did, and there were so many people that I was touched by when I was out there campaigning, and I wanted to be able to continue to be a voice for good and a voice for change and things that needed to happen. And so this podcast has become a way of being able to do that. So I love it when people reach out to me if they want to get on the show, if they have some issue that's important to them. The best way for them to do that is to reach out to me. You can reach out to me through social media at Nate Kane for WV. I'm on X, I'm on True Social, Getter, Gab, Facebook, you name it. If it exists, I'm probably on it. And also on my website, theraisingcaneshow.com. There's a link down there. I do have a booker that helps my schedule and everything. And you can email us from a link there, and it will email her, and then she'll get in contact with you and get you on the show if it's something that that fits for our show. But the other thing too is the great thing about that website is you can follow not only the stuff that I'm doing with the Patriots Prayer podcast, but also I'm involved with Unleashed, the political news hour, which is a part of America Out Loud Talk Radio, and that airs once a week. I do that show, and then I also have have mcpota.substack.com, and I publish all of my Substack articles, and I talk about those same type of issues, and so I release those at least 1 to 2 a week.
Man, you sound like a pretty busy guy.
I am. Sometimes I feel like I'm more busy now than I was even during the campaign, which is crazy. But yeah, I've stayed pretty busy.
Well, Nate, thanks for coming on the show. I enjoyed being on your show. I think I found another lifelong friend. And, if you need me, call me, and, just let's keep doing this.
Definitely. We're one state away. So we got to get together and have some coffee and share and talk story, because there's a lot of stuff that I'd love to talk with you about that I'm sure is going on over there in Maryland. I used to live over there. So, it'd be a great conversation, I'm sure.
You understand. So, friends, thank you for tuning in to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share it with your buddies. And remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility from ourselves and our fellow citizens. I'd like to hear your opinion, so if time permits, please leave me a comment or a like, or both. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay free.